What is up? We are back at it again. Modded by P here. So, I last left off with having a few things to take care of. Haven't really done any of those yet, because I ran into a bunch of other problems. Not necessarily problems, but just issues and things that I wanted to work out. But, so I still got this power cable that I need to relocate. Again, I'm gonna run it back here and up through the fender, and maybe just buy another junction box or something, because I could probably do it with one more junction box. But I finally got my math down in here now with that elbow, and everything's all bolted down and ready to go. I need to extend this radiator overflow hose here basically and tap it into my overflow. Another thing that I have to do is straighten out this exhaust, just because, as you can see, it's already eating my bumper, number one, and number two, if I do paint this car, which is my next step here, basically just gonna be shooting myself in the foot, because I'll be burning the brand new paint right off the new bumper, or the old bumper, but new paint on the old bumper. So as you can see here, I took the dash off. Most people think I'm crazy, but I am crazy, so yeah, how about that? No. Realistically, the wiring in this thing was a nightmare. It was rats nested everywhere, and so I basically decided to build a little fuse panel once I discovered that the airbag little flap on the dash, once you remove like 4 10mm bolts on it, you can literally just pull the thing off pretty easily, so you can actually use it as an access panel. And so I kind of did some measuring, had a little metal plate laying around, spray painted it black, put my wideband up there, and just 2 relays for right now. And literally the 2 relays are just going to control my gauge power and the lights for the gauge. So before, I don't think I've ever actually said anything about this on my channel. Those of you who know me probably already know this, but I basically have 3 switches that I installed right here on the shift boot piece here. And first one's my fuel pump, second one's my electric fans, and the third one used to be the lights for the gauges. But I've since then decided that I'm just going to wire it into the actual headlight switch, because I don't see why I would ever have to turn off the gauge lights or turn them on independently from the headlights. It would literally only be at night when I would have the headlights on anyway, so I'm just going to eliminate that wiring and that switch from being that, and I'm actually going to convert it to the power for all the gauges. Now you might be wondering, why would I do that? Well, mostly because sometimes my wideband, for whatever reason, the way I have it wired with my push button start, sometimes I start the car and it just like, in that split second when it's cranking over, it cuts the power to the actual wideband controller right there. And so it just kind of throws an error and the thing never reads. I basically have to turn the car off and turn the car back on for the wideband to start working again. So I figured if I had it on a switch, I could just turn it off, turn it back on real quick, and boom, bada bing, we're back in action. Also, it's kind of like maybe another anti-theft deterrent, you know, if the switch isn't on and maybe they turn the power on somehow and then realize that nothing else is even turning on and they don't know why. Or so that's kind of what I'm going for there. I also relocated my switches, since I have these custom door panels from Street Faction that are already rusting, mind you. They're a couple years old, but it was a factory black powder coat on them, and literally all the screws are rusted and half of the panel right there is rusted. I'm probably gonna have to do something about that, but that's another bridge when we get there, and not that important. So I did end up deleting the window switches on the doors, just because I wanted it to look a lot cleaner. I mean, but so as you can see here, I have basically 4 relays. This is all for the window motors. A couple fuses right there. And those are the actual window switches that go in some custom thing, which you may have seen before or not. It's got this own little bracket. But, yeah, basically 1 for each side, up and down. So that's why there's 4 of them. I probably could have done different wiring, but this was the most simple to me, so I just did it like this. As you can see here, I have custom crap going on with the ignition just because of how I have the push button start and everything in the dash. Let's go talk about the dash, actually. We'll walk over there. So I had this other dash that was my buddy Mike's, and I think he either gave it to me for free or I paid 20 bucks for it or something stupid like that. But originally I was gonna, like, you know, take his dash because it was a little bit cleaner than mine, but as I started digging a little deeper, it seems like his foam is deteriorated like way past mine, so where if you like touch it anywhere, it just instantly starts a new hole and crack. So the part that is not going to, I ordered a cover lay, by the way, it's in the mail. So once the cover lay comes, I was going to put it on this dash, but it also doesn't have the VIN on it anymore. He took that off and swapped it, so I'd have to swap my VIN as well. And also, the part past the cover lay, it looks like shit on his dash kind of too. So I wasn't about to try to fix half a dash and put a cover lay on the other half. That kind of defeats the purpose of why I ordered the cover lay to begin with, because I just wanted one and done it. So as I started looking at my dash, the really only problem with it was the fact that I had mounted my old boost controller bracket right here. And not only did it indent this thing, but I got two big ass holes in it that just look ugly as hell. But it's already got my hole for my push button start, and it's actually pretty clean from the cover lay down, which is essentially this line all the way across. And the airbag is not even included in the cover lay either. It just literally covers here all the way around and over the hump. So, which is where I have a majority of all my issues. And originally I thought that you had to smooth out the dash before you could install the cover lay, but from all the videos I've been watching, people say that you don't even put glue in the middle of it, just around the edges, so that it can actually expand and contract and not have any issues with cracking or whatever. So I'm gonna reuse this dash, and it's pretty clean. One thing I did do was take out one of Mike's vents that just wasn't cracked like mine, and it was in better condition. So I'm gonna have like basically two vents, and you can see right there's the airbag piece. I armor-alled it. It looks super good. Like, it looks brand new. I have a little bit of like paint specks, which you probably can't. Oh yeah, there's one right there. Like, I don't know what the guy that had the car before me did, but he kind of had like a paint can explosion in the car. You can see there's a big blob of paint, and I've already taken a lot of it off already with some alcohol and just rubbing the hell out of it before. So at least the coverway will cover half of this top part now, and it'll just look a lot cleaner. So it'll look like I don't have a cracked dash. And the only problem, like I said, is this bracket, but I have a new boost controller coming in, and it's from a company out of UK called LD Performance, and I haven't seen a whole lot of videos on these or people using them, but it was pretty cheap, and it comes with a standard like 3-port, you know, that basically every other good name brand boost controller uses, and it seemed like it's pretty simple functionality, and it'll even do some crazy stuff like boost by RPM, which I'll never use, but it's just kind of cool. And it has a nice little LED display. Also, based on that, it has a digital PSI, basically, gauge for the boost. That'll always be live running on the screen for the boost controller. So, with that being said, I'm going to delete my actual boost gauge that I had before, the Gretty one. Mostly because my Gretty gauges are just getting old, and I don't know how accurate they are anymore, / they all give me problems every now and then. Like, this boost gauge wasn't even working when I just took it out of the car. I'm not sure if it was just a bad connection with the wiring or whatnot. Here's a nice little tidbit right here. This is the 3D printed gauge pod for the center console that I have, a double DIN hole in it. Another thing, I had a screen in it, and I took that out, like a DVD player, old school thing. It was kind of, I had decided already to take it out, but it was kind of funny because I damaged it when I was taking it out somehow and put a big old crack right in the screen, so it was trash anyway. But funny how things work out like that. But here is the turbo timer, which is also old school HKS bullshit tech. I'm getting rid of all of this shit, man. Like, I got an SR20 with a small turbo. I don't need a turbo timer. The solenoid, this is the solenoid box for the Gretty Profect boost controller that I had in there that I was talking about, but see, it's just old, man. Old ass tech. When it worked really good, and so there was no reason to replace nothing, but I've been having nothing but issues with the boost controller. The turbo timer gives me issues sometimes with like the ignition, and I felt like the wires are getting hot over here, probably because they're freaking old or something. The stock 30-year-old chassis shit probably is bad, but long story short, I got rid of all the old crap. So kind of where I'm at right now is just rerouting all my wires as best I can without the dash on, because I want a lot of the wires to be put in the correct location without having to do it when the dash is on. So that's So I got this piece of cardboard right here. I was doing a bunch of soldering yesterday for the 2 relays over here, and as you can see, I got them grounded over there. And then what I do is, I typically do this in all cars that I have electronic blocks in, because it just makes it so much easier. I got a negative terminal box basically and a positive one. The positive one does have like this little plastic cover that's a really chintzy. Don't really trust it at all, but where this is in the location of the dash is actually pretty tucked back, so I don't have to worry about it really getting anything in there, touching anything. And I think what I'm gonna do is end up buying one of those multimedia screens that basically are just like old school DVD players, but they're way slimmer in profile as far as depth into the dash, so it ends up not taking up a whole lot of room either. And they're pretty cool because you can Bluetooth to them. You can do everything that every modern CD player can do. Look, here's all the rest of the dash parts just chilling in the back seat. So yeah, I'm basically in the middle of wiring up these 2 relays, one for the gauge power and one for the gauge lights. It's pretty much already done. I just have to, I already figured out, I think, which wire and my switch and everything too, but I'm gonna wait until I hook the battery back up and confirm that I actually have the correct wire, that it's getting a 12-volt current. I don't really care which wire it is, as long as I get 12 volts when I turn the headlights on. So with that being said, I have to revisit some of the wiring as well, because if I do remember correctly, this wideband controller, for whatever reason, this yellow wire that comes out here is the reference wire from the actual wideband sensor, and it basically is yellow, and the one that I think it plugs into is white on the opposite side harness, which is right here. It's just like a little plug do-dilly, and I really haven't decided yet where I want to put my gauges now. So I have an A pillar pod, and then I have the 3 in the center console and the 3D printed piece, so I'm basically just trying to figure out what'll work the best. I'm gonna be, since I'm short a gauge hole, all the holes were filled before, since I'm short a boost gauge now, I think what I've decided to do, since I also eliminated my turbo timer, which really I only use the turbo timer for a digital voltmeter, and that has actually, you know, come in handy quite a bit, man. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy another, just probably some cheap Amazon or eBay digital voltmeter, so I just constantly know what the volts of the battery are. And I'm thinking about putting maybe the wideband, because this is not a very big gauge, just because half of it's in that controller over there on the plate. So I think I'm gonna put this in the pillar, and I'll probably put that digital volt as well in the pillar, so that way they can kind of do their own thing. I don't necessarily have to tap them into, well, I guess I will still tap them in here. But long story short, maybe that'll be better than having matching, you know, 3 Getty gauges in the center. Makes the most sense. Basically, I got oil pressure, fuel pressure, temp. Yep. So, water temp, that is. So that's it. Let me do some work, and I'll report back.